Welcome back to part 2 of painting on the trail. We're still at the Songbird Trail, and we're on the Clinch River side of the trail, so we'll be looking at some of that stuff. As you can see, there's a lot of mist or fog on the river this morning. That's going to play into 2 of the paintings in this video today. As I head down the path, I notice a lot of that fog has drifted onto the path ahead of me, and it makes for a very interesting scene, as you'll see in a moment. I'm captivated by this scene. There's so much fog around, but the light streaming through it. And I think, how can I do a painting of this? And so that's what we're going to do next, and see how I did this painting as best as I could to sort of capture this scene that my eyes saw. First thing I did on my blank piece of paper was sort of figure out where my horizon was, sort of the area in the distance where the fog, well, where the ground ends and the sky begins. But with so much trees and foliage, it was kind of hard to figure that out. So I just kind of put a place in, and then you see from that I extended the path as far as I could see. So the path extends actually further than the horizon. So I had to adjust that a little bit, but that's the starting point. The next step was I wanted to follow some of what James Gurney had taught in putting down some of your dark values before your light values. So I went ahead and stuck in some of the indications where the trees would be, and then some of the dark green to fit behind it. This was sort of the first stage on this painting. At this point, I have a lot more of the green established, especially along the left where there's forest, and a little bit along the right where the Clinch River is located. Now the sun is sort of directly over top because of how it beams down through the fog, but there is a lot of light values to the right along the river, so I didn't want to put as much dark green over there except for what was on the trees itself. I finished a lot of the background colors at this point, including the path and the shadows, and let the painting dry overnight before attempting to add the white of the fog. I originally wanted to use white watercolor, but I actually didn't have any watercolor pigment of that color. So using white gouache, which I feared would be too opaque, I went ahead and began using it. The reason I waited overnight is that despite, because it is water soluble, if I put the white gouache on too soon, it would mix with the other colors and become brown or green or whatever colors were already there. So I went ahead and put the white gouache on after it had dried, and used painting techniques that sort of mirrored the strands of light pouring down from above, from over top. And so that's why there's lines that sort of show it in that. And this is just an early part of the fog. There's a lot more getting it a little more finely tuned as the painting continues. Here you can see some of that white gouache is a little wet. A little further along, I've removed some of the white gouache and did a little more job of defining the trees behind them. So this is still not the final product, and there's still a little ways to go, but just trying to find the balance between making a scene full of fog and but also keeping some of the aspects of the trees and the foliage around it. So here's the final image. A lot more has been added since the last image. I've added the tree branch over top. There's actually some detail of branches here, along with the leaves that go with it. Some detail to the bushes down here, and a little more detail here. You can see that the some of those original fog strands do still appear in the background. They've kind of blended in. And using the dry brush technique, I've been able to add the actual sun rays that are passing through the fog. So, overall, I'm not sure if this really conveys the same image that I saw, but that was a really challenging image to do, to try to capture this scene of complete fog, but also sun coming through. So, here's the original photo, and see for yourself what my mind's eye saw compared to what maybe you saw. Sometimes when you're out on the trail, you encounter some wildlife, animals. This is some of the wildlife that I encountered while out on the trail this day. The cover photo for this video was actually done of a scene at Victor Ashe Park here in Knoxville. This is the water pump house for a fountain in the pond at that park. It was a trail that I had walked back on September 1st, and I liked it so much I painted the scene on September 3rd for my Puzzle Box 5, which is a sequential discovery puzzle box that I designed and built. You can see a video on that on my Ritual Woodworking channel if you care to. The painting was done in acrylic, but I still consider it as part of my hiking series of 2023 of different parks and venues that I had been to, and took a photo and attempted to do a painting based on what my mind's eye had seen. In this next painting, we're going to focus really on the Clinch River itself, rather than the path. And so you can see this is the river with the bank on the other side, and you've got that sort of mist over the top, and then ducks right here in the foreground, bathing in the water. So that's going to be the focus of our next painting. Now, starting out right away, I've put in my line for the horizon, where the water ends, and the sort of the ridges or mountains behind will start. The next thing I've done is wet the paper where the sky and the water will go. And so what I did was I mixed up a bit of some cerulean blue and cobalt blue with a lot of white gouache to make a sort of a milky white bluish color. I added that to the sky for that small amount of sky where you would actually see sky. We're not covered by the mountains. And then along the bottom where the water would be, all that area along the water, and made that as wet as I could to really just kind of wash that into. Of course, as you remember, this is not watercolor paper. This is mixed media paper. But either way, it worked well in this case. At this point, I have added the ridges behind the river bluff, as it is sometimes called. So you've got a sort of a distant one made with more of a Prussian blue and green mix, and then one that's a little closer, made primarily of medium green, some deep green, and even some yellow and pale green mixed in. I'm just giving that as much texture as I can at this point, but I'm sort of layering, but also just giving a lot of different texture, because there are a lot of trees over there, and they're not all the same tree. So that's something to just keep working on. The difference at this point is I've added a little more texture to that primary ridge. I've also added some blue to the water, because that original showed some blue texture in the water. It's not all white from the mist. There is a little bit of the river showing through. And so what I did is I put some blue pigment down, some streaks, and then went over it with a brush full of water to kind of blend it out, blend it in with the white. And then I've added some of that tree to the left. That's actually in the foreground, so there's a lot more of that that will be going on as well. At this point, I've added a lot of the vegetation to the foreground. You've got these two plants in the front, plus this shrub or tree bush to the right, and more of that tree to the left. Just adding more of these particulars in. Really, the last thing to do is the ducks and some of the detail to the trees themselves. Something that I really struggle with is light and darkness plus color composition. And so making things maybe more than one color, as well as showing light and dark in my scenes. You don't see a lot of shadow. You see, I guess I had really focused more on mixing color and learning color combinations than really showing the light and darkness. So, as usual, as a hobbyist painter, you just keep every picture is a practice, and you just keep working away as much as you can, and don't compare yourself to others, and definitely don't compare your progress to the progress of others. Just keep doing your thing, and it will improve over time as you go through it.
Well, at this point, I've added more vegetation down here, some of the vegetation here, and more importantly, I've started adding the ducks. And, to be honest with you, I wasn't even going to put the ducks in the first place, but they're sort of part of the picture, and, well, I guess I put them in. They're really brown in color, but in this particular instance, they seem to be more of a gray as they blend in with the fog of the water. I'm not really trying to make anything that looks like a duck. It's really just putting some blobs in. I mean, they're sort of in the shadow, and so they're around. And some of these shapes have come out looking actually like ducks, and some of them don't. But again, they're not the highlight of my picture. The things look like chipmunks or turtles. And then there's a little bit of reflection of them. I've added that here and there. But as far as I'm concerned, I think this picture is about done, and I'll show a better picture of that here.
So look forward to some more videos on this content in the coming months on painting the trail. I've been to a lot of different state parks and general parks, one national park, and an arboretum, and some other places. And there's a lot of things I'd like to paint. So there will be other videos, probably shorter in length than parts 1 and 2 were on the Songbird Trail. But there will be more content on this in the coming months. Stay tuned.